Hello, this is Karen Coyle, and this is part one of my talk, Metadata is a Plural Noun. Usually when you hear definitions of metadata, there's something catchy, such as data about data. And that's a nice, short, alliterative kind of definition, but in fact, I think it's wrong. It really doesn't explain what metadata is. And especially for us in libraries where much of our metadata is about the things that we have, the books, the CDs, etc. So I have another definition. It's less catchy, but I think it explains things better. And that is that metadata first is constructed. It is constructed, meaning that it is unnatural, it is man made. It is something that people create, and they create it for a purpose. And so, in that sense, it is constructive. It has a particular reason for existing, usually has a very definite goal in mind. And being that today everything that we do with metadata is being used by computers, being acted on by computers, metadata today must be actionable. And by that I mean that using computer technology, there are things that you can do with it. So, to give you an example, we have on the left here the real planet. This is what it looks like from space. On the right, what you have is the way that we often see the planet today, which is with these lines going around it that represent longitude and latitude. Longitude and latitude are metadata about the planet. They are constructed, the planet doesn't really have lines going around it. They're constructed for the purpose of navigation. Navigation, especially in those situations where, there aren't any signposts. Here's another kind of metadata, which is in a way similar to the metadata of longitude and latitude. It is something that helps you navigate, something that helps you get around. However, it has an entirely different purpose. The purpose here is to help you find your way around a subway, to know where to change, where to get off, what lines are. This one, even though it is a map, and it's a map that represents, in this case, the city of Boston, it does not represent the same thing that we would represent with longitude and latitude. It does not represent the actual planet. And it doesn't because that's not its purpose. Its purpose is to help you navigate the subway. And so some things have been fudged a bit, let's say, in terms of actual place. But it serves its purpose very well. Here's an entirely different kind of metadata. This is metadata about the game of baseball. This is a numeric vision of baseball, a statistical vision that helps people make comparisons so that they can compare one player to another, they can compare one season to another, and they can compare teams. This is not the actual game of baseball, although for some people this is almost more living and more important than the actual game. But it is a representation of it in metadata. Other metadata helps us to get a visual clue of things that we cannot really see. For example, the human genome, and which obviously doesn't look like these cute little colored lozenges, but by making a picture of it and assigning data to different parts of it, it has been possible to give people some kind of a vision of what the genes might be, at least for those of us who will never be doing actual genetic research. So, key thing about metadata today is the data part of metadata. To explain what I mean about actionable, here's a printed map on the left that I can use to, help me get around the state of Massachusetts. I can look up a city, I can see what the highways are, I can get myself from point A to point B. But basically, that's all I can do with it. And every time I open it up, it's going to be exactly the same. On the right-hand side, you see Google Maps, and it may look the same, but it actually is very different because although the display may be similar to a printed map, the display is coming out of data that is underneath that display or behind it, whatever your vision is. and can be used to create new services, new views. So as an example, I can do a search on Google and I can search for hotels near Boston, and not only does where it has the hotels and their addresses, it can put those on the map for me. This means that I can do mashups between things like hotels and their addresses and the map of Boston. This ability to do something new with the data is key to metadata and to being interactive. This interactiveness requires a certain level of rigorousness of the data so that the data can be used by computers to compute new views and new services, and to bring together different things from different services and from different sets of data and allow them to work together. Another thing that is wonderful about data, and especially data in the world today where we have a lot of devices that we take with us so that we can have our data with us where we actually need it. And so this being an example of a GPS system, of something that guides you along the roads. But if you stop and think about it, it makes sense that you would want to have the data that people are using at the point where they're using it. And so the question for us becomes, what are those points with library data? And how can we get the data to the users when they're actually in that moment of needing to make use of it? So the next section of this talk will be about library metadata, and I thank you for listening.